Hello, everyone, and welcome to Osquery Office Hours. Here we are, about a week before Halloween. Otherwise, kind of normal New England fall for me. Hopefully, normal Octobers for the rest of you as well. Let's see. First up, announcements and highlights. Anyone have anything? Okay. Next up, issues, questions, PRs, anything people want to especially bring up. If not, moving on. I put a note here about releases. I cut Osquery 560 about 2 weeks ago. There are builds up. I have not tested them. I don't know if anyone else has had a chance to look at them yet.
I don't think we have had a chance to push them. I think we might have pushed them yesterday, but I'm not sure. I'll have to double check.
Okay, I should push them to Collide beta. Y'all should push them to Fleet beta. I don't think there's much else going on with those, though. And we're tentatively targeting December 1st for 570. So those build things. Anyone want to say anything about builds? Cool. Last week, I was starting to talk about this weird keychain corruption issue. I've started trying to make some test cases for it, and I haven't finished those, so I don't have anything to say about it yet. I'm not sure if anyone else does.
I did write a quick Python script to open the keychain DB, but I haven't run into corruption issues on a VM. I also maybe spend like an hour on it and not more. So I'm sure I can. I don't know. I can probably test that pathway through Osquery, just have a scheduled opening certificate stable every 5 seconds, but I haven't done that.
About what I was thinking. One of the things I was thinking about is if there's some kind of race condition between multiple readers or writers. So I was thinking about how to replicate that inside a VM and spinning up, multiple OS queries to all kind of try and run a read, but they're all read-only actions. So I don't know if that's going to be enough yet. Cool. Well,
I don't think it's that widely reported because people typically don't query those queries every 60 seconds or whatever. I don't know. Are you aware of how wide this could be or this is?
Not very. On the other hand, I think you probably have to be pretty large and hitting this pretty often to sort of find the race condition. The thing that's maybe most worrying to me is that the comment from Apple on this is yeah, that happens, don't query it. And I'm a little bit I don't know where that's going to leave us. And certainly a bunch of my attention, and I imagine yours as well, is on Ventura right now. So
yeah, I mean, the only way to kind of mitigate it is to hard code some random amount of sleep after the query is done. But
maybe,
yeah,
or maybe that just reduces the likelihood, right? If it's a race condition with some other event in the OS, then doing it less often will reduce likelihood of collision, but won't eliminate it. So who knows? I guess speaking of which, macOS Ventura got released. Collide has not noticed any issues with anything Collide does.
Yeah, so this is I think there's another bug about the endpoint security full disk access permissions. There's a new permissions class called endpoint security client permissions, and apparently they both are not compatible, and it has to be reset and rebooted, so it can't That's what I've been hearing, but I haven't encountered it. Um,
We don't use those, so we wouldn't see that. When you say like reset and rebooted, what do you mean?
so this is like from a user downloading osquery.pkg, double clicking it, installing it, and opening up system preferences to give full disk access permissions. If you have already done that on a 12.0 system and you upgrade it to a 13.0 system, you have to kind of uncheck it, add it kind of back, and there's a new permissions about endpoint security client. So
That's weird. So like this is specific to granting endpoint security permissions.
Yeah.
And like to things that already had full disk access.
Yeah, so there's a new permission called endpoint security client access in the TCC database. I only seen it on one of my personal machines.
I guess it's just weird that it's like through the same FDA flow.
Yeah.
But that probably also means anyone installing through an MDM might have like an additional permission they need to grant.
I think the MDM one doesn't go through this route, so MDM one is easier. I haven't seen any issues, but I also haven't completely tested it yet.
I'm just going to write this down in the minutes and maybe we'll learn more.
And this is like one machine, so not enough. And
Anyone else see anything weird with Ventura?
Like I mentioned before, we tested a number of tables on the beta and didn't find any significant breakages.
Same.
One thing I do remember noticing now is, and I can't remember if this was an M1 change or if it had to do with 12 versus 13, but the USB devices table no longer lists the internal USB devices. Didn't seem like a huge issue to me.
So Ventura has another, like one of those permissions, like if you attach like a USB device, it'll ask like, hey, do you want to allow this USB hub to access the, so maybe it's related to that, but I haven't had enough time to kind of dive into it.
I also tested, this was quite some time ago, but Osquery was building fine under one of the early betas.
Nice. It's like maybe not much for changes then. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Testing quickly on my Monterey M1, USB devices does not look like it has internal devices. So
okay, so yeah, maybe that is the M1 thing now.
That might have been an M1 change.
Yeah.
But for all I know, they're not USB anymore or something. I don't know what Apple does.
If you check the Asahi Linux documentation, most USB devices have been moved internal to the SoC. So they're all connected via like a message box system as part of the SoC, and it's just like another ARC64 core on the same die. Like even the NVMe controller is on the same die and doesn't show up as a PCI Express device.
That's kind of neat.
Awesome.
Other Ventura items? Also, I have no idea if it's Ventura or Ventura, so I'm sorry I keep swapping back and forth between the two. Okay. Well, next item on our agenda maybe is from Alessandro, BPF process events.
Yeah, we could use some more testing there. Artemis let us fix a problem on ARM64. It should now be working there. There are some changes we should make in the cgroup columns. Right now, we are only getting part of the entire path. However, talking to Artemis, it seems like it is better if we capture the whole path, if possible. So I will be working on that next.
Cool. I don't know if there's other stuff around there that you want to talk about.
Not really. There are some additional changes that I would like to make. I would like to merge this after the next release is tagged. I mean, it is an experiment, and unless you enable it, I don't think it's going to cause any kind of issue. But I think it is still good practice to wait for the next release.
Why?
Just to make sure that we do not introduce any kind of breakage right when we have to actually tag and release.
I guess where I'm sort of going right is why is it less likely to break things December 2nd than today?
Depends on whether we want to tag the. I mean, I wouldn't merge it right now and then tag the next release right after. I want to give people a chance to test it and say, no, this is broken, don't merge it.
Okay. Well, next release is currently scheduled for December 1st. Historically, we tend to not be on time with those. Generally, I'd say merge it when it's ready to be merged as an experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have somewhat of a similar mind to Seth, where I'm thinking, like, is it going to get additional testing after it's merged to main? If not, then I don't see any reason not to just merge it to main whenever it's ready.
And also, this isn't like it's something that's on by default that's going to crash someone's production config. This is something they specifically have to enable.
Yeah, I'm good merging it whenever y'all playing with it think it's fine to merge. I think you'll probably also get more testers once it's on main, because I bet there are people who find it easy to grab a pre-built one and test it then. Should I pull something off of a PR, but I might be wrong. Other things here?
Not for me.
Very excited to see that functionality coming in, though.
I keep, maybe slightly relatedly, I keep talking up your BPF library on Twitter.
Nice.
Maybe someone will use it. Next item you're at is updating the Osquery.io sponsors list.
Yeah, and hopefully this is quick, and maybe I just asked the
Let's
wrong
do it.
question. Okay, cool.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't always read Slack.
I think I asked the wrong question in Slack too. I think I said, does anyone object to doing this? And I probably should have just said, like, this is cool. And all right, cool. So I'll submit a PR to do it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I mean, when I made that list, I just kind of was like,
Sure.
I think this is the right. I don't think Fleet existed when I made the list.
Fleet did not exist when you made the list, and just someone at Fleet recently realized, like, hey, shouldn't we be on that
Yes,
list?
absolutely. Add
So,
yourself.
Cool.
I'll approve that PR.
Thank you. Cool. Thank you. And thanks, Alessandro, for following up with me about this, because I dropped that in the channel and then got distracted with other things. But I appreciate everyone's support here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of everything on our agenda. We recently created a standing item to look at pending security issues, though I don't think we've actually started creating new security issues. Although I did see a CVE go by for SQLite.
So
Was this the CVE that Trail of Bits just reported?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually tagged as security some CVEs issues which actually were already opened, but
Oh, cool.
that we haven't acted on them just because they were not affecting Osquery.
You're right. There are more
But
issues here now.
just to be easier to see, they are now tagged with security. For the SQLite one, let me check. I don't recall if we actually have opened an issue upstream, but so in that case, I have to remember exactly. But anyway, Osquery was not affected by this, so as far as I recall. So
It didn't look like from the blog post. It didn't look like something we would be affected by.
yeah, it's an API that you would need to use directly, and it's not something it's not something we use.
So this is perhaps a good exercise for the process that you were talking about, the last office hours, Stefano, about how we can acknowledge that we have looked at that and we don't believe we're affected.
Yeah. I mean, for talking about that PR, I simply haven't looked back. I mean, I looked at the set suggestions. I answered and put some of my. Well, I expanded the idea, or at least the original idea of having the manifest, but I haven't looked at actually changing the logic to use the GitHub issues as the database. Yeah, and mostly I wonder if me expanding, if anyone had a chance to look at the additional things I've written. Mainly it's around the fact that the GitHub issues as a database only shows you the very latest state, and you can't take out a history from it. So the view of the CV states of Osquery at each commit or at each Osquery version. But then I also suggested, we can, every time we do a release, we can export the state, obviously, of CVs, and probably that in the future will also become an SBOM. But until we don't have that,
I think the question is going to be around what people find easiest, right? Like, would you rather manually update the CV exclusions list in a file, or do we want to kind of dump GitHub issue state into some release file? And I feel like those are kind of two ways to get at the same thing. I'm mostly not the one doing the work here, so I can be persuaded to go with whatever you think is easier.
I mean, for me, it's not like, here's the thing. For me, it's not a problem remembering to have to change that, especially because even if I forget, the issue is open again. I mean, might not be nice from the point of view of having multiple issues with the same name, but at least you really cannot forget to do it. In the sense that eventually you will notice that you forgot to update it, and you have to deal with it. The other point is that when the database is ever increasing. So as I said, the GitHub API, I still haven't seen if there is another API, but I can only download 100 issues every 5 seconds, basically. And I fear that they will start, I mean, hopefully they will not grow that fast, but I don't know. Yeah. And so maybe not now, maybe in a few years. Obviously, we can just say, okay, we start with that, and we can change in the future how we deal with things if we find that we are slowing down the retrieval of all those issues. But it's kind of a given, basically. It might not happen in 1 year, 2 years, but eventually there will be hundreds of CVs issues to download.
Yeah.
Unless we do a cut off in some way.
I mean, while that's true, we can also get an API key here. So there's.
But I'm talking about the GitHub issues API. So I'm already using the token, the CI token. Is there an API key that would reduce?
I'm pretty sure we can
Because
get an additional access token.
Yeah, I have to check again, because it was my impression that the limits were actually like that was the fastest I could download them, even. But I may be wrong. I have to.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I could imagine making that better, right? Because you could certainly say, so it's like a somewhat theoretical answer, right? If we want to capture the state into a local file at release time, then we only really care about changes in that file, right? So you could start pulling in like updated at, or right, anything that's already captured into our file state, we don't need to pull from the database. So we start building a more complex search query there. But I'm also not sure it's worth it. Like, if you are happy with this external file, we have now explored using this as a database. I'm happy to defer to you. You're the one that's going to do most of this.
No, so actually, I'm. Yeah, I just remembered that, and with what you said, we don't need necessarily to download all of them. We can download them once on a file, and then use a cut off of, I don't know, let's only download the last month or whatever. Yeah, and continuously update a file automatically. Yes. Yeah.
But like, if you're happy with what you have.
No. I mean, that's better, actually. Yeah. No, I was just assuming not using any file at all, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the file's already there, right? So like, presumably it'll be structured, and then it just looks like loaded into RAM, and find everything since the prior. Right, pull open things and pull close things that aren't in this list. I don't know what it would look like.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it has to be a separate file that represents the state of GitHub. The improvement there, obviously, is that if you have basically it's a dump of the GitHub issues.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, probably like issue in state or something.
Mm-hmm.
Last updated at.
Yeah.
I don't know where this leaves things. Do you want to take a shot at implementing that? Do you want me to read over this PR again and thumb it?
No, I can. Yeah, I can do that. I don't think it's too difficult. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Totally up to you, I think.
Yeah, no. In the end, it's even. I would say it's a commit. It's a file we commit. So. Yeah.
Oh, that's.
I mean, somewhere we have to keep the
No, it's a file we commit, which means we can't update it from an action.
Sorry, what do you mean can't update it from an action, Seth?
It's hard.
You could open a PR to update it, or you mean you can't update it directly? Is that the problem?
So in a PR, you can't. So it's hard. Inside a PR, actions shouldn't change the content of the PR. This is enforced both at like a permissions layer, which you can modify, but also at like a theoretical process layer. It tends to just be a big ball of wax if your CI style jobs fuck with your PRs. You can certainly create scheduled processes that take things, dump them, and open PRs on them, and that requires some amount of permissions monkeying. Like I think it's not enabled by default, but you can enable the permissions flow of having it. But like once I unpack all of that, now you're suddenly talking about a special GitHub Actions job to go and update the state file, or having it just be a step on our release process. And maybe it's better to put that rock down. I don't know.
Can we treat it like formatting? So I think the problem of the manifest file is that currently it's not possible when the user open a PR to say, hey, wait, you have to update the manifest. You only notice that the manifest has to be updated if the issues gets reopened. But in this case, every time we open the PR can run the action of downloading the latest stuff and see that the state of the database file is not the same to what it is expecting. So it can fail the PR and ask the user, please add these lines. The database is not.
So the downside to that, and this was something that I think you did well in the current version of this, is if I imagine a contribution from a random community member, right? And it's like, hey, this random CVE database is out of date. Go fix it before anything happens here. They're gonna be like, what? It's just weird. It like starts pulling in wrong data. Whereas the thing you have, that stuff is all triggered when sorry, what's the word I want? When the dependencies change, right?
Yeah.
So the people who are changing the dependencies, we can put a little bit more burden on them for updating like ugly files. But I feel like I don't want to push that burden out onto random contributors, especially for things that are changing.
Mm-hmm.
How would we detect people changing dependencies?
So the current incarnation, as I understand it, there's a maybe a CI check that says if the dependencies don't match what's in this manifest file, then the manifest file is obviously out of date and go fix it.
Okay.
Which is very different than using the GitHub issues as a database, right? So I think we're sort of pulling on the thread of how would we detect like out of date state on a PR versus not.
Yeah, part of the issue is that if we like by design, we are not sharing the NVD API key in PRs, because if we had shared that, then we would have the knowledge, because we could download the current state, have the state of the libraries, and see that there is a mismatch in CVEs being ignored or not. But yeah, the decision was not to share the NVD key in PRs, so that it's might not be so that it's not leaked, and or that we don't, I don't know, ping too much the servers. And so we have to construct that state from something, from some cached state.
I think we should just accept whatever you have is a good step on the way. And while
Yeah.
imperfect, it sounds like all of the other things we can do quickly are also imperfect.
Yeah, that logic can be definitely changed in time. So yeah, if you want to keep it as it is right now, we can in the future change it. It's not if we find a better way.
Yeah, I just kind of like I can make up stories about how we can have some kind of nightly job cache data as an artifact, which then other jobs can read and compare. And but then there's these questions about who's responsible for fixing things, because like I don't actually want to trigger warnings on, a community member's like, hey, I fixed a bug in a table PRs.
But also there's conditions, because if this, like the artifact being creative is older than what's the actual state of the GitHub issues, then
yeah. So I don't know. There's a ball of wax here,
Yeah.
and maybe we can just put the rock down. Okay, I will try and review and thumb this PR with those things in mind.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of suggestions I still have, like on the labels to separate them and other things like that. Those, yeah, definitely want to act on them.
Yeah.
They were. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for all the work, and I'm sorry it's been dragging on.
No problem.
Do we want to read down this list of security CVEs? Sure, I'll do that.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
We have update Yara dependency, which probably doesn't impact us, would be my guess, but let's see.
Yeah, the details for that one say it doesn't.
Yeah.
Or it.
Yeah, you'd have to control the Osquery config file, in which case you will already have permission to do whatever you're doing. Add CV scanning, we've talked about. Update the libz std dependency. Does not affect Osquery. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Let me check, because there are. I seem to recall there were two of this. Sorry, I'm trying to.
Well, this one Mike says doesn't affect us.
Yeah, I think there is one I might not have opened that the let's see. Yeah, this doesn't affect us because it's on the command line, and that's okay. But I have to double check, because I was almost convinced that actually we did update the libz std to remove this. But I seem to recall there was another one, but there were no releases, new releases and fix actually for libz std. And so, or wait, no, I'm maybe confusing this with zlib. Just a second. I think I have the issue opened in the example database, example repository, where the example repository for the PR scanning CVs. I think. Oh yeah, this was zlib. Sorry, not yesterday. Never mind then. And let's see. Yeah, I think we don't have a CV open on the repository. So right now, just for reference, I can link you the CV on my temporary repository. Yeah, there's a buffer overflow. Yeah, heap buffer overread or buffer overflow when doing inflating, basically, compression. No, sorry, decompression. And yeah, also this one, we are not affected actually, because we have checked. The only way to trigger that issue is to call that specific inflate get header function, and we don't have any API call of that kind in Osquery. So I guess, yeah, I later open CVs for this. Yeah, on the main repositories just for tracking purposes. But yeah,
I think you should not open CVEs for tracking purposes, and you should let your tool do it.
oh yeah, just because. Okay, yeah.
I mean, if we
Just
think
because
there's
right now
something,
there's no.
yeah, if there's something we're vulnerable to, then absolutely we should. But if you've sort of eyeballed it, and I'm not sure it's worth opening a tracking one, point at this other
Okay.
one or get your tool merged or something. Next one I have here is this util Linux dependency, and Mike says we're not vulnerable. This is like a whole host of CVEs. So
Yeah.
So yeah, libgcrypt, which is a transitive dependency, and we do not think we're impacted.
Yeah, we don't do any encryption. We only decrypt stuff just to be able to. I'm not even sure we are actually decrypting anything. We are just detecting.
Yeah, it's just
the
for
disk.
looks. Yeah, looks
Yeah.
disk encryption table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have this long-running potential thrift vulnerability. Which we mostly think we are not impacted by because the thrift server only accepts connections from local processes, which is protected by the file system permissions.
Yep.
Is that true on Windows? Because I know that's on the other file system, but I think Trail of Bits did work to make that protected by administrator a while ago.
Windows uses named pipes.
Yep.
It's probably worth taking a look at whether the permissions are correct on those named pipes.
I seem to recall that there was a change to set the ACLs.
Yeah, that's what I'm remembering.
Correct.
See if
The
I can
ACLs.
find
Yeah.
it.
Marcos, do you think you could take a look at that thrift, the named pipe that's used for the thrift transport on Windows, and just kind of give your assessment of whether the permissions seem right to you?
Sure. Sure, that's something that I can look into. Definitely.
Awesome, thank you.
I want to be tagged on this ticket.
Yeah.
I'm just skimming merged PRs quickly to see if anything looks
6875 from Mike. This was the change done.
sorry, which PR?
6875. I also put a link in the chat.
That's probably okay, but I guess if Marcos is going to look at it. Marcos, who are you, Marcos? I don't have your GitHub identity.
Marcos D4H.
Yeah, there you go.
D4H.
The autocomplete on the Osquery repo no longer works very well.
It never does. I don't understand what I don't work for Microsoft. I don't know what it's supposed to do. I tagged you on that ticket, Marcos. Thank you. And linked in the PR. Feature request for logging a message when the Osquery D service is stopped.
Sorry,
So
I lost the list.
looking at 5313. Is this our responsibility? Like, I would kind of expect any init system to do this, and doesn't Osquery emit shutdown messages?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
this is from.
it's
I'm gonna close this. This is from like years ago.
I mean, to be fair, there has been the past request also from our customers, but like, yeah, beyond the question is how. I mean, you can store the information in the database and try to send it at the next, because part of the problem is, yes, we can log it to the syslog, but then how unless you have something to ship the syslog, how do you see it in Splunk and whatever? Because for sure, when it is done maliciously or whatever, I mean, Osquery will have problems sending logs, and especially on shutdown, you don't want to send logs. And
I mean, but if you start assuming a reasonably clever attacker, they would just blow away the Osquery database anyhow. So like we could stick something into the Osquery logs to be sent on next start, but then a reasonable attacker would just nuke the database. And Osquery is going to send startup messages. So this feels like Osquery is not designed to be hardened in the face of like particularly strong adversaries, right? Like we don't actually go in and hide ourselves in the kernel. So anytime someone starts to be like, oh well, an attacker can shut down Osquery, I'm just like, yep. Like I don't think we can solve that. I might be wrong, and maybe we should be aiming at that, but I feel like that's just never been the mission of Osquery.
We'd practically end up just having to be a rootkit if we don't want someone to be able to shut us down. Like,
right.
We'd need some sort of thing in the kernel maybe to prevent killing from happening or something like that. Or I wonder if you can do that with eBPF.
You can actually do something. If the kernel is configured to enable the relevant option, you can hook into system calls with a kprobe, and then you can force it to fail.
Yeah, that sounds like rootkit stuff, and let's not do that.
And the question is what you do on the other platforms too.
Yeah, I have an example here.
But, yeah.
That way lies commercial EDR vendors and all of the foibles that make people hate them. I closed that ticket because I didn't think it made sense and it was very old. Someone can open a new ticket with a different ask or something. Other ticket I have here is some giant upgrade. A lot of things, which I think probably will close once Stefano's things go live. So I'm going to ignore 7494. And then there's a Yara one. I think we talked about the Yara one already. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So technically, if you look at, since again I said we haven't opened all the CVEs that while I was working on the tool has reported. So there are actually additional CVEs that the tool on my temporary repository has found. But and actually some of them I should close because those are old. So like we have recently there has been opened like 3 CVs on dbus. Like it's number 29, 27, 28, 29 on my repository, but those are related to the dbus daemon. and you have to control in some way the the message, and it's not something like that you can do from Osquery. Basically, I wouldn't say so. You don't have that kind of control. We only use it. We only queried it. You use the dbus to as a transport to query the services that are enabled, like to we query system control, I think, system D, and you use it just as a read. So, and you can only do that through the query, and the request is fixed. So there's no way to control basically the input to cause the crash that here is talking about.
Great.
Otherwise, the like you can see libxml. This is the one that actually is not active anymore because we have updated it. So I should actually maybe just close them.
Does it auto close?
No, because I haven't. Opened. Sorry, I haven't done that in the Python script. No, so the workflow is that you should be closing them, and then in a PR, either add the ignore if you want to ignore, or if updated, yes, you have to close them yourself with the PR, so that there is a reason, connected reason to why you have closed those issues. Since here is just a test, test repository, there's no PR, there's no workflow of that kind. So
Okay.
they were still open from a previous run. Let me just double check a list. To 914 actually. No, okay, this is before 2914. Yeah. Anyway, they are all old. There's another one, librpm, but again, this one it's only related if you are you have like. Yeah, it's impossible. A local unprivileged user who owns another ancestor directory could potentially use this flow to gain root privileges. But yeah, there's no issue with that. We are already accessing the database as root with root. Yeah, and the other one, there are three. This is, I think, during install. Yeah, this seems an issue when installing RPMs, etc. So Osquery doesn't do anything like that, so it's not affected due to that. And finally, again, there is a risk condition that can give you root privileges, but again, there's no problem with Osquery. So those three are not affecting Osquery.
Great.
There is still one, libdpkg. This again was a sort of recent one, but again, this is related to extracting untrusted source packages. We do not do anything like that. So again, it's not affected. We are not affected.
Great.
So yeah, I think this is all.
Okay. Well, it's pretty cool. I think that's the list of pending security things, and it'll get even smoother with the automation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't have anything else. Nothing else on our agenda. So maybe that's everything. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for your time and code and effort and everything else you all do. And we will talk later.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
So,
Thank you. Bye.
like,